Okay, this may be a little bit of a weird video, but I want you to hang in there with me. I promise I have a point to make. So I was driving with my eldest daughter through North Portland, and we were on Lombard, and there was a cop in front of us. Well, he started out behind us, and then he was just weaving in and out of traffic, not bothering to use his turn signals. He was going more than 20 miles over the speed limit. No lights, no sirens, just like a cop. I can do whatever I want. And I was like, that motherfucker, this seems like a great time to put on our 1312 playlist. And the first song that came up was Piggy Pie by the Juggalos. I promise, hang on with me, guys, hang on with me. And Ruth was like, you know what? I've been thinking about how Insane Clown Posse and the Venezuelan migrants, they have a lot in common. The US government has falsely labeled both as gangs, and in both instances uses tattoos to claim that innocent people are part of a gang. And of course, we know that authoritarian regimes, they love to delegitimize, to villainize people by calling them thugs and gang members. Okay, and I'm going to admit here that several years ago, I absolutely bought into FBI propaganda about Insane Clown Posse, and Ruth had to correct me. Okay, so Ruth is an adult now. She's actually almost the same age I was when I had her. But when she was a younger teenager, she went through a phase where she really kind of liked Insane Clown Posse a lot. And I was like, girl, why are you listening to them? Because at the time, I believed some vague whisperings that turned out to be like vestiges of FBI propaganda, that they were some violent, threatening alt-right band. Now, of course, I was getting it twisted. The actual propaganda from the FBI was that they were a violent gang, and that anybody who had a Juggalo tattoo, that was a sign that they were in a gang. And I wasn't familiar with any of their music, which I guess is under the genre carnival rap. And some of their music is what you would consider horrorcore, right? They have songs about doing violent things to child predators, songs about doing violent things to the cops. And that second one, that is probably what got them on an FBI watch list or labeled by the FBI as a gang. If you actually look at Insane Clown Posse's music, it's not in any way politically correct, but it is woke. They really have a pretty compelling working class solidarity message. Very much like an anti-cop, anti-government oppression, eat the rich kind of a mentality in their music. And it's for that reason, that anti-establishment, anti-authoritarian message, anti-cop message, that got them falsely labeled as a gang. Okay, forgive the googly eyes, y'all. It is what it is. But Juggalos are the fan base of Insane Clown Posse, right? They are the Swifties of Insane Clown Posse. And allegedly, according to the FBI and the National Gang Intelligence Center, and other law enforcement agencies, there are gang members who like to use Juggalo imagery and get tattoos of them, particularly their little mascot of a dude holding a hatchet. But based on this, the FBI has basically said, if you have any Insane Clown Posse tattoo on your body, you must be in a gang. So this is a logical fallacy called confirming the antecedent, where you say, if it's raining, the ground is wet. Therefore, if the ground is wet, it must be raining. There are some gang members who happen to have Juggalo tattoos. Therefore, anyone with a Juggalo tattoo must be a gang member. That's completely fallacious. The FBI tried to take it even a step further to say, if you are a fan of Insane Clown Posse, you must be a gang member. So it went from some guys we accuse of being in a gang have Juggalo tattoos, to anybody with a Juggalo tattoo must be in a gang, to anybody that is a Juggalo, aka a fan of Insane Clown Posse, must be in a gang. You're seeing yet the connection between the Venezuelan migrants and what the Trump regime is doing to them right now by claiming they are all members of MS-13 because they have any tattoo whatsoever. I'll get into that more in a second, but let's get back to ICP. Back in 2014, the ACLU of Michigan actually filed a federal lawsuit against the FBI. If you wonder how Michigan's ACLU chapter got involved, it's because Insane Clown Posse is based in Detroit. The ACLU of Michigan, they sued the FBI back in 2014 for stigmatizing all fans of Insane Clown Posse, who refer to themselves as Juggalos, much like dedicated fans of the Grateful Dead are known as Deadheads, or fans of Taylor Swift are known as Swifties. Sued the FBI for stigmatizing all Juggalos as criminals, as gang members. Based on a few isolated criminal incidents involving Juggalos, the federal government officially designated the Juggalos, the entire fan base, as a gang. Sure, there are some Swifties that have been arrested for various incidents around the country. Does that mean every single Swiftie is part of a gang, that Taylor Swift is leading a gang of thugs and criminals? That is what the FBI tried to do to Insane Clown Posse and all of their fan base. As a result, completely innocent juggalos who are not involved in criminal activity are being harassed by police, denied unemployment, and stigmatized because of the clothing and the tattoos they use to identify themselves as parts of the fan base. So unfortunately, the judge in the case dismissed it, not because the FBI wasn't engaging in this kind of behavior, but because the juggalos themselves did not prove that they had suffered legal consequences. So therefore, they didn't have the standing to sue under the designation of the Administrative Procedures Act. While they didn't win in court, the case was successful in other ways, raising public awareness about the absurdity of gang designation in general, causing the FBI to admit to the court that only a small number of juggalos were engaged in any criminal activity, and putting local law enforcement agencies on notice that they can be sued for targeting juggalos. I'm just going to read this line again, raising public awareness about the absurdity of gang designation. And yet we still have the FBI claiming that juggalos are a gang, using that as a designation to vilify and attack fans of a band who sings about the oppression of the police and working class solidarity. So let's tie it into the Venezuelan migrants. All of the men who have been illegally renditioned to the torture gulag in El Salvador, all of those men have been denied due process. So I know that Stephen Miller and the Trump regime have been lying through their fucking teeth saying that only citizens get due process. That is absolutely not true. And look, we've already seen American citizens being denied due process and kicked out of this country illegally just because they happen to be minors, little children. But due process is the way that when the government says that person is in a gang, that you defend yourself and say, actually, here's the evidence that I'm not. If we don't have the right of due process, then if the government labels you as a criminal, as a gang member, as a thug, as whatever the fuck they want, you have no way to refute that. Due process is the way by which you assert your innocence. You refute the false claims of the government. So the claim from the U.S. government is that these men deserve to be kidnapped from their homes, shipped on planes overnight by Avilo Airlines, and sent to a torture gulag for the rest of their lives, paid for by our tax dollars, because the government has decided that they are all part of a Venezuelan gang called MS-13. And what is the government's proof that these men are part of MS-13? They have tattoos. They claim these men don't deserve due process. They want you to be okay with the violation of their rights because they want you to see these men as violent gang members. They want you to believe the government. Fascist regimes love to tell the people we're keeping you safe from violent criminals. We need to override your constitutional rights. We need to start rescinding rights in our society so that we can keep you safe from violent thugs. But again, we're looking at this logical fallacy of because some men who are in MS-13 have tattoos, the government is claiming any Venezuelan migrant with a tattoo must be part of MS-13. Again, just to reiterate here, even if they were part of even if there was a credible accusation that they were part of MS-13, they still deserve due process. They still deserve their day in court. They still have the right to present evidence that they are innocent in front of a judge.
ICE is using these tattoos as proof that migrant men are part of either Tren de Aragua or MS-13. But experts say tattoos are not reliable identifiers.
This piece from The Guardian in March. The U.S. claims tattoos prove membership of Tren de Aragua gang, but relatives describe tributes to God, family, and Real Madrid. These men are being deported because of their tattoos. They're being targeted for their body art. Quick correction for The Guardian, it's not deportation, it's rendition. This part here is really important. Tren de Aragua has no specific tattoos. If you see pictures of actual gang members of Tren de Aragua arrested in the U.S., they're shirtless and many of them don't have any tattoos at all. But the young men who are illegally rounded up and sent to this torture prison that do have tattoos that the government is claiming are proof that they are in this gang. Here's one example, a young man with an autism awareness tattoo that he got to honor his brother. I really encourage you to go read this whole Guardian article. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll link to it because they give specific stories. They name these men and they show their tattoos and how they are not proof that they are in a gang. And let's jump to just a couple of days ago when Trump mistakes photoshopped image of Kilmar Abrego Garcia's knuckle tattoos for the real thing in an intense ABC News interview. Here's the now infamous and obviously photoshopped image that Trump tried to claim was proof that Kilmar has MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. The interviewer told Trump he did not have the letters MS-13, that was photoshopped. Trump replied, as Trump does, you can pause to read. Please be aware, these are not new tactics of vilifying innocent people by claiming that their tattoos prove that they are violent thugs or in a gang. This is why we have due process rights. Otherwise, the government can just make up ridiculous lies about you to disappear you to a torture gulag forever.